ask me, most of the mental problems in Singapore is just caused by money. If government changed the policy with regards to giving more financial security to Singaporean, I'm very sure half of the mental problems will be gone.
To Wise and Shine. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, SG Budget Babe. Today you guys might realize our background a little different because we shifted to a new place.
We got new set, a lot of new toys.
A lot of new toys.
Yes. And we have a new guest, right? So would you like to introduce yourself for everybody that somehow don't know you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Man Wai from the Progress Singapore Party. I'm also an NCMP in Parliament. Thank you very much, Reggie and Don, for having me today.
Thanks for coming on set.
When my producers told me, we got Man Wai, I was like, oh, really? Okay.
Really?
You had a lot of interesting speeches in Parliament, and we will go through a little bit of them.
And you say that they don't interest millennials, right? That's why I'm here today.
That's right. He's here to tell us what's the good quality of life. But before we go into the main discussion today, I want to give a special shout out to Audio Technica Southeast Asia. They have sponsored a lot of toys for us, especially this new mic 2040 AT2040. We used to use another set of mics, I think ATR2100. Yeah, you might still see us using it because we have a lot of mics at this point in time. But special shout out to them for sponsoring this whole new set for us. Of course, we have a lot of new things around. So slowly I will share with you a lot of new things, right? But today is specifically today we're going to focus on what is the good quality of life. Is it about collecting a lot of new things, and all that jazz, right? Because I do think Singaporeans are trying to define what is considered a good life, right? And because you have a lot of things to say in Parliament, so we got you
it's one of your key
things, right? So what do you think? Okay, of course the question is open to everybody, but maybe you can start. So what do you think is a good quality of life?
Yeah, in fact, if you look at my website, which is leongmanwai.sg.
Oh, you have a website called
very well run.
There are four objectives that I'm trying to achieve in Parliament, and one of them is actually a good quality of life. Yeah, but of course I must confess that I didn't give a lot of thought to what the millennials would want to be what the millennials would consider a very good quality of life. Basically, because I start from the premise that I think what we need to do is to build a good ground, make the soil fertile for the millennials to develop themselves. And I presume that going forward, a good quality of life is not just one type of good quality of life in Singapore. There will be many different types, and that is the future Singapore we want. That the millennials, each of the millennials can actually develop their own good quality of life.
The term good quality of life tends to be a bit vague, right? Could you expound on, to you, for instance, what do you define as a good quality of life?
I think if from a politician perspective, first, I think mostly in the hearts of Singaporean or in the minds of Singaporean, I think they would think that a good quality of life would involve cost of living. Yeah, so Singapore already have attained a reasonably high level of material achievement. But the standard of living that we are having today is quite good, but it is at a very high cost. So I think one of the main things that Singaporeans would like to have is if the cost of living can go down, then the quality of life will have improved tremendously for many Singaporeans. So that's why that is one of the main focus we are doing in Parliament. Try to tell the policymakers, the government, that we actually need to have a different way of running the economy so that the cost of living can be lowered. So that's the first thing we concentrate on. But of course, the true quality of life you want to talk about would be different. And I think every millennial would probably have a different set of thinking. But to me, actually, it's self-fulfillment.
That's a big word. Can you explain what do you mean by self-fulfillment?
Actually, for every human being, what is important is...
very philosophical, huh? Every human being, yes. No, it's fine. Please go. Go for it.
Because it'll be boring.
No, you're fine.
But I think every person, Just don't use the word human being. Every person will probably, I think it's very important for every person to find his own position in life, his own position, and through finding his own position in society, his relationship with people. Yeah. So, and through that, he should be able to develop his potentials in many areas. First of all, maybe career, if he's an engineer, he should be given the opportunities to really develop his career so that he becomes an engineer who can actually design things, or an engineer who can lead, a factory in improving the processes and all that. So he should be always given the opportunities for as far as he wants to go. Just to maximize the potential.
For growth.
So for growth. So when he is able to do that in his career, then he is able to fulfill himself. Maximize his potential. Then of course there are other aspects of after he has fulfilled himself in the career, is he will be in a very, I would assume that he will be in a very comfortable mindset, and his relationship with other people and his relationship with his family and all that will be better.
So is that your story? Is your relationship with your family?
I think for one thing, if you are not very comfortable with your own life, I think it's difficult to be a politician.
Why? Can you share a little more?
Because there are a lot of pressure you encounter as a politician.
Say something. What is that pressure?
For example, once you get into the limelight, everybody's looking at you, all your behaviors, all the things you said. And sometimes you have to bring that pressure back home or in your mind. And then if you don't have a stable family, you don't have a stable finances, for example, then when you get home, you still got to worry about a lot of things. And I think we are also going to talk about families later on. Is you really bring back the negative. You can bring back a lot of negative emotions home as a politician. Yeah. So you need to be very stable.
So what's your worst situation where you bring back that thing home?
So far, I think I'm relatively comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel any extraordinary pressure on me and all that. But definitely each parliament sitting, we will have to reflect and say, how can we do better to bring the message across to the Singaporeans without having to embarrass the government too much.
I think pressure is actually a very important facet when you look at quality of life, right?
Yeah.
So what is to you a good quality of life?
For me, I primarily define it, if I were to use what my wife talk about in terms of the different segments, right? I would say cost of living, money should not be a problem, right? You should be able to not just survive but thrive, and not have to, always think twice or thrice before you spend. I think that is something that we all want to get to, and that's comfortable. The second part would be career, definitely finding fulfillment. But I think I want the stance where you can actually find value and fulfillment regardless of any job that you take on. But it's just whether the person's mindset can prime to accept that. Like if you really think about it, right? I've held many different roles. I've also done some different side hustles, and every role in one way or other is adding value to society, isn't it?
Today all very atas, the discussion.
It's true. Even this podcast is adding value to society, but it's how you frame and understand the role that you play.
But you must be doing something you like.
Yes.
And you must have the skills and the capabilities to do it. Of course, you can learn when you're interested, but sometimes if you don't have the skill set and you really don't have the aptitude, sometimes it's time for you to think of a change, actually. So to maximize the potential of what you're doing is very important. That forms the foundation of being in the process of feeling self-fulfilled. That's very important.
Yeah, it must be a very nice ikigai.
So, but like
section,
what Don said just now, the ikigai, right? Ikigai, yeah. So, but ikigai is actually ikigai also. But you must be able to feel fulfilled before you can reach ikigai. Ikigai is the purpose in life, is it? That's Japanese purpose in life. So like what Don said just now, the foundation is first a comfortable level of living. It cannot be too rich. If you are too rich, you are distracted by other things. But you must be comfortable. You know, but you must become. You're not comfortable. You have to. That's why we are actually advocating a minimum wage in Singapore, because you don't give a minimum level of income to Singaporeans. Even he go home after working 8 hours a day or even 12 hours a day, he still don't have enough money to survive. He still don't have money to feed his children. You know, so how can he be feeling self-fulfilled?
Yeah, it's very hard.
You know,
You'll just be thinking about survival.
And if you ask me, most of the mental problems in Singapore is just caused by money. If government changed the policy with regards to giving more financial security to Singaporean, I'm very sure half of the mental problems will be gone.
If we go back to the discussion of like what is a good quality of life, I think both of you expound one tenet of it, which is the material quality of life, right?
Yes.
Which is the physical, the tangible.
Yeah.
You must have a certain level of comfort lah, which I don't
就好
think
像人家说嘛，钱不是万人，万
但没有
人，
钱
但是
万万不能。
没钱就万万不能。
Yeah,
对吗？
I mean, I
这个
agree,
是最
right?
基
Yeah,
本的。
yeah, yeah. It's true,
Yeah,
it's true, right? So I think those are valid, and I don't think our listeners will dispute that, right? They are already in a camp where, on some level, they have accumulated some level of wealth, right? But a lot of people still struggle with like defining themselves as, hey, actually, my quality of life is quite good, right? By extension means that I think Singapore has reached a point where a lot of the middle class is grappling with the intangible.
Yes.
Right? It's no longer just like, oh, put food. Like now can put good food. It's not even put food on the table.
Yes.
At least amongst the people that we are talking to, right? But a lot of them are still very unhappy, feel very dissociated, lack of fulfillment, all that. And I feel like that is a very like intangible level where we want to, you know, go into that realm to define what is good quality of life from,
Actually, I view,
from
right,
that view.
a lot of that whole problems come from the fact that the younger generations, because we have social media, right? There's a lot of comparisons going on. So when we fail to recognize the privilege or the good quality of life that we have, because we're constantly looking at someone else who has it better. And it's different from, you know, before social media, this kind of comparison tend to be limited to the people within your circle or friends of friends. It's like second or third degree connection. But now you go online, you see everyone flaunting their wealth and all, and it just leads to these feelings of insecurity. And I think it's just going to get worse for like people who keep comparing.
Yeah, exactly. So social inequality is a major cause of the unhappiness in Singapore. You
believe so?
Among Singaporeans, yes. Because you can see that although you may be doing well, but one, you can see that there are other people who are doing much better than you. Then at the same time, you can also see many Singaporeans who are not doing so well. Yeah, in fact, the gap between the rich and the not so rich in Singapore is quite big. Okay, you look at our Gini coefficient, you know, it's close to 45%. And 45% indicates that the first 20% of Singaporeans probably control 60 to 70% of the income, with the rest shared by the remaining 40% shared by the remaining 80%. So there's a big gap in all this income and wealth distribution would be even more, the gap would be even bigger from income. So this kind of inequality is one of the major contribution of the unhappiness. Yeah.
Okay, so you all feel like it is a relative situation. Like people are not feeling that they're happy, they're not enjoying their life, they don't think their life is good because they're comparing to someone else.
Yeah.
As opposed to where I come from, which is because we all already, or a lot of us have already gotten to a certain level of comfort where we can define that our material quality of life is quite good. But we cannot call our lives a good quality because it's a bit meaningless. You know, where like, what's next? That's why you see a lot of young professionals quitting their job today, not because they are fired. I mean, there's a group of people that are getting retrenched, but I have a lot of random friends, you know, anecdotal evidence, I don't have collective numbers, to suggest that, oh, 我不干了, right? I'm going on a holiday, and I'm taking a sabbatical 1 year, you know, like, oh, existential crisis, I need to go and redefine my life, you know, and all these on some level, they can do that because they've gathered some level of material wealth.
That's why the word ikigai is now becoming becoming the popular word.
Very fanciful these days. Everyone's using the word.
So your view is that they don't have direction, lah. That's why it's not a good quality of
Yeah,
life.
that's partly the thing. Don't have direction. But the Chinese call it 躺平 lah.
Tang Ping,
lying flat,
quiet
lay
quitting,
flat.
lay flat movement.
Anything,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so that's the second reason. That's the second point about why people are feeling unhappy today. Okay, despite the fact that the material comfort of the world, generally, especially Asia, has actually gone up quite a lot. Okay, because the economy today also reflects what I've said just now. The economy is also two-tier economy. You know, one part of the economy is doing very well, but whereas most of the other part of the economy is actually very low productivity, very low value add work you do. You know, so like for example, of course, at all work we should treat them with dignity and all that. But definitely the kind of work done by a dishwasher. And just the kind of work done by maybe someone who is producing a program is different. Right. So the value add to society and all that. So as a result, today we have to ensure that the amount of work available to the young generations, the good jobs continue to be there. If the good jobs are not growing as fast, or worse still, taken over by foreigners, then the younger generation will feel that they have not enough job opportunities. And on top of that, many of the jobs in Singapore, I would say that there's still not enough debt.
In what sense? Can you
That
elaborate?
means, like for example, in the finance line, you know, for the longest time I've been in finance. I have 30 years of experience in finance. Finance, there are various parts of various things that you can do. For example, you can be a marketer of a credit card. Just pushing credit card. Or you can be someone who is advising a company on a merger. You know, that kind of work is...
and it's all blanket as finance.
Blanket as finance. We have to respect all work. I don't want to sound as if I'm so critical and some, but definitely someone who has entered the banking sector or the finance sector selling or promoting credit card, he should slowly think of how to move into a level of work that actually do credit analysis and advise companies on how to run their business. That sort of opportunities in Singapore is relatively limited.
Why?
No, because our banking sector and financial sector is just not deep enough. And you ask me, that would be another area of policy that I will talk about in Parliament in due course, because how the government promote industry. So our whole banking industry today just basically rely on wealth management. And what is wealth management? Wealth management is because foreigners like Singapore, all the monies are coming to Singapore. So you take the money from them and tell them how to invest. But actually, the process of the wealth management process, most of the wealth management process is also just marketing and talking to the clients that collect the money. But actually, the real value add of wealth management is how you produce the return for the client. That part is called fund management and all that. So whereas the people in fund management the number of jobs in fund management is limited, but the number of jobs in just collecting the money and servicing the client, that sort of jobs are plentiful in Singapore. So what I'm saying is that while you can enter the industry through first interfacing with the customer, but later on you should, as part of self-fulfillment, as I said just now, I'm sure many of Singaporeans are targeting at that. Slowly, I will get the customer to entrust me with his money, and then I'll be able to generate a return for him. Singaporeans, I'm sure they are, in financial, you aspire to do that. But at this stage in Singapore, do we have enough jobs to allow our Singaporeans to move up? When they move up, they might find that, the job is taken over by somebody else already. So it's very important for us to create the opportunities, especially the good opportunities for our Singaporeans to move up. And not just remain at the lower level of just keep pushing credit card, pushing unsecured loan, and just a relationship and fill in the application forms for the rich foreigner to put his money in Singapore. So from there he has to move on. So
but if you want to sponsor us, I still take one. Credit card insurance is fine, right? I understand what you're saying. But okay, is there a tangent where it's not about jobs anymore. You know what I mean? Like you like okay, we get it. There's the material side and there's some level of job or like owning a business, having some sort of money element to a good quality of life, right? But I really think a lot of Singaporeans want the more spiritual level type of thing, you know, like more like beyond just material, right?
Actually, I think Singaporeans have not experienced enough good jobs.
Enough good job. I thought you were going to say hardship.
Yeah, maybe you can
Enough good
leverage.
jobs.
Enough
Because
good
that's
job.
why I spent 18 years overseas.
Yeah.
Okay, and out of that 13 years I was working overseas. You'll find that the Singapore economy by and large, you know, there's still a lot of good jobs that you can find overseas, like in Japan, in London, in New York. You can't find in Singapore. The one I described just now about actually capital markets. Capital market is about advising companies. So all these are relatively limited in Singapore. Then why Singapore cannot grow this? The fault of the government. So that we did not promote the capital markets enough. So that's why you see our SGX. No companies are listing in Singapore anymore.
Yeah. And I think we're also trying to grow the
but
bond
of course,
market
that's a
and all
very
that,
deep
right?
topic.
Yes.
So first of all, the Singaporeans got not enough such experience. So after working for maybe 5 to 6 years or even after 10 years, he find that, hey, I'm still in this job.
So in your worldview, good jobs will create a good quality of life, not just from a material sense, but also from a fulfillment.
Yes. You just imagine from just pushing a credit card, you know, like for example, for the longest time, when the people say, well, you always want to run away from your insurance agent friend, right? Because they keep pushing the product to you, right? No, we are not
we're not, but it's a reality. Yes.
But on the other hand, if many years ago, when someone come and say that, I can be your financial consultant, I help you to get a better return on your money, hey, you would like to listen to that, right? So, however, in recent years, that has also become rampant. So many financial advisors in the market, and the levels are not there yet because they've not received enough training, enough exposure in Singapore. But if our financial market is deeper, there are more of these things, and when you from a marketeer of funds and all that to a financial advisor, and then you can move on to become a portfolio strategist, and then you move on to be an analyst, you know, and then you move on to become a family office manager. You know, this is the kind of path we must ensure that our Singaporeans have a fair chance of participating in. And when they continue to participate in this way, they will be learning all the time. And when they're learning all the time, I don't think they want to tan ping, you know. Very frankly, I don't think they want to tan ping. Throughout my whole career, there's no at any moment I want to tan ping, you know, because every time I'm learning. So you must put the person in that mode. You know, but you ask that person to perform the same thing, and then furthermore, in the workplace, he found that there's so many politics. You know, there's so many different people that he may not know very well, because in our job market today, there's so many nationalities around. You know, he feel that the bosses may not be fair, and all that. You have all these experiences. It's so negative that you really want to get out. So that is the kind of situation I think Singapore and also many other countries are facing.
Interesting. So actually your view is it's not about less work, it's about more work but better work.
Better work, yes. Better work.
So counterculture. I mean,
better work, not more work.
So it's not about less work. It's not about doing less. Not work-life balance, you know, not like...
No, work-life balance is also important, but your work is must be better work. If you have better work, you enjoy your work, that is part of your life.
So in essence, it would be, taking finance out as the example, it would be work that is fulfilling and where you can grow in.
Yes, you can grow with the job. You know, I don't think any person, or I use the word again, a human being, you know, can do without work, you know.
Really?
Yes.
I have to agree with that.
Share. Why do you agree?
That means because...
Then life would be meaningless, right?
Yeah, because through work, you're contributing to society. At the same time, why you want life? Because you want to contribute to yourself. Just yourself, I can tell you, human beings are social animal. You're just to yourself, you won't feel happy at all. You must feel that you're contributing to society.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show.
I think jobs aside, it's also like the relationships that we have that determine the quality of life.
Yeah. Okay, I think the relationship, maybe you elaborate a little bit. Yeah, where you going?
I mean, for my own situation, I think I'm in a pretty privileged case, right? Because I'm married.
Privilege is also a worthy contestation, but another episode, yes, please.
I would say it's a pretty good quality of life in the sense that I am married and then my parents are still around, my in-laws are also around. We get support with the kids and my kids are young and cute, yes. Although sometimes it gets on my nerves. But yeah, overall, it's a package, it's a family, right? But I don't know how that would look like with this new trend of people choosing not to get married or not to have kids.
It's a thing.
And do you think that, with this new trend and if that persists for the next generations, right, would that element then of relationship start to change in terms of how it gets defined the good quality of life? Or will it be that our quality of life will simply not be so good anymore because we lack this core?
I think we get back to what we started off from just now. Basically, we all agree, right, that there's a comfortable level of standard of living.
Yes.
There must be at least a comfortable standard of living. But on top of that is human being or every person will actually look for more. And that is self-fulfillment in my definition. And inside the self-fulfillment, work is an important element.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Fair.
So if you are very well, you come from a well-off family, okay, and you don't have to do anything throughout your life, I don't think you feel happy at all. So in the end,
I mean, aside from the material part as well as work, we also have to acknowledge relationship plays a very important part, right? Because at the end of the day, you work all day, you might be the top in your career, top in your work, but then if you have no family, no relationship come back to, it's also quite sad. I don't think people in those states would say they have a good quality of life.
So I think that can be manifest in this like individualism movement where a lot of people are very on their own, very individualistic. They believe that, it is just about me, myself and I.
And some prioritizing their work ahead of other relationships for the time being, but then later on our biological clock might work against us, right? Then you don't get a chance to build those relationships that you missed out in your younger years. So how would this whole trajectory shape the whole landscape of what it means to have a good quality of life for the next generation?
From the past experiences and you look at human history. I'm a student of social science and human history.
Anthropology?
And not so much anthropology, but I'm very interested in how society developed over time, social history and all that. What you can be assured is that the human progress pendulum is always a pendulum. It shifts from one side, it shifts from the middle, and then you shift from one side and then swing to the other side. So although now we may think that everybody goes from individualism, but inside individualism, you'll find that you will swing back to social. People who want social relationships a bit more going forward. I don't think it's a complete dumping the social and part and the social relationship part. It will continue to be important.
And I think even though family sizes have shrunk, right? It's not that relationships are not important anymore within this tenet as a quality of life discussion, right?
It's just that
it has changed. So now, right, having a cat is a great relationship also. Right? Like although it's one way lah. Okay, maybe not so one way lah, right? It's like the cat will interact with you and it forms it kind of adds to that whole like good quality of life type of thing, all that.
The only question would then be in the older years. The cat cannot outlive you. The cat cannot take care of you when you cannot go toilet anymore. So then if you have no children.
So the state must come in, right? To take care of people like me. Is that the idea?
The state, but I think one idea that probably in Singapore we would like to promote going forward is state, but we also need to have the community. Because if you don't have the community to take care of one another, there's a limit of what the state can do.
It's very heavy.
Yeah, because like for example, recently we've been talking a lot of we have been looking at many of the problems like special needs children like aging, all that. So invariably what we found is that even we have the money to build the facilities for these people, we don't have the people to look after them. More so, we don't have the people to actually guide them. These need to be the expert, So that's why even if you're a social worker, you start off with maybe cleaning up for the special needs people. But after that, you should think of, I've been interacting with the social needs people for so long. I understand them. What's next for me? I mean, if you're someone who, if you're talking about self-fulfillment, then you should know that, then you should come think about, maybe I should actually take a course, and if I'm government, I will make sure that all these people are given the resources to actually train themselves to be autistic expert. And then instead of just looking after their own children, they start to look after 10 children for us. That is the kind of community we want to build, That's why apart from what we call the private economy, I think very soon we'll be talking about social economy. In the social economy, you have this group of people may not be paid fully for what they are doing, but we can talk about that later. But they are definitely being encouraged to contribute themselves. So contribute their services. So if you do not have a fair number of these people doing the work, unfortunately, we are not going to be a very happy society because we could rely on foreigners to come in and take care of us. And the foreigners are not going to take care of all the autistic children that we have in Singapore.
Yeah, I mean, you stay in Japan for a long time, right? But when I was in Japan as a tourist, right, I think the bus driver also Japanese, the person that, sweep the floor also Japanese, the person that is like, the traffic police, everybody is Japanese. And I feel like there's a certain level of pride that they take in their work, it is a very interesting situation.
Because the state sometimes encompasses a lot of things. But the social part, taking care of the welfare, for the welfare of the citizens and the harmony of the society, actually is something more appropriately described as community. Within the state, there must be a very community.
The social aspects of it. Yeah. Okay.
So
fair.
I think that is something that, I think Singapore, we need to develop a lot more.
Okay.
And not just rely on foreign labor all the time to come in and sweep the floor of the OH homes for us,
Fair. Okay, fair. So I wasn't expecting the episode to take such a tangent in the sense of like is about better work, more work, and not about less work. Because better better work. On some level, you want to do better work, you have to put in more work, right? But that's a different discussion, yeah. But I always thought it's like, maybe a bit less work, not so stressed, reduce the intensity, but from your take, it's quite different. Okay, so maybe if I ask you a counter question, right? What do you think Singaporeans are doing that is wrong in terms of pursuing a good quality of life?
Oh, I can go first.
Yes, go.
I would say looking outwards,
in
comparing too much. So I would say, like, to be fair, most of us, as long as we live in Singapore, right, we do have it better than a lot of other people. But we fail to recognize that because we're always looking up and looking upwards, which is not wrong, but we have to strike a balance between being aspirational versus letting that make us feel sorry about ourselves. And I think a lot of the mental health issues, like, when people feel depressed and all, right, a lot of it actually comes from comparison. Like, you feel like you're not good enough because you're looking at someone else, but someone's maximum potential versus your own maximum potential is very different. I'll give an example. Although I don't know how this really fits into quality of life, but comparison for me, right? Like, I'm very conscious of comparison because I was being compared a lot as a kid. So I grew up making sure that I try. Now, my sister was smarter than me, so I got compared a lot. So I grew up, when I was growing up, right, I was like, okay, I'm quite determined. I don't want to compare so much. I don't want to do this on my kids, so on and so forth. But when I became a mom, I realized, that whole cycle starts up all over again. Because there's social media, right? And you see like super moms having all perfect lives. People who give birth already, their tummy so flat, never do anything. They already lose all the pregnancy weight. And here I was struggling and trying to find my food, struggling in breastfeeding, trying to balance work and the kids. And I'm just like, and seeing all those perfectly put together lives on Instagram and social media made me feel really shitty about myself.
Yeah,
and to get out of that state, I had to remind myself that actually I have it good. I need to stop looking at other people.
Let's be clear, a lot of those guys are not real. They don't live a real life.
Exactly, but I think we always forget that because when we look at social media, and because social media nowadays, the main trend it's also about authenticity, right? So they build relationship and then they show this is my real life, So they try
which is harder to engineer. Every time the client tell me, I want natural, so natural must stage one, very staged one. The more natural, the more staged. Right? It is.
For some, but I think because of this whole element, I feel if people didn't compare so much, if we didn't have this prevalence of social media and less comparisons, people would be happier. People would recognize where they are more and be more appreciative. But we find it very difficult to do that because there's always someone doing better.
But there's some element. I think what Don say. I don't think it's the majority, but it's a significant factor. Yeah, but definitely the competitive race in Singapore is quite intense. But there's also inherently the nature of Singaporeans because we have originally we have an immigrant culture, right? So we come here, the fight for survival instinct is very high, very high. And so Singaporeans, we learn from our parents, and then and parents learn from the grandparents. That instinct is still there. So to strive and do better and better when you can see that there are other people who are doing much better than you is something true in Singapore. But nevertheless, I think coming back to what I said just now, what Singapore today, most Singaporeans are facing are actually, they find that the opportunities given to available to them is actually not as good as before. They find it difficult to actually keep up. Not that they necessarily want to be at, not that they want to buy the best cars and all that all the time, but they definitely would aspire to have
I think we all do, right? We all want
slightly higher standard of living,
better quality
but they
of
just
life.
find that they just don't have enough opportunities. The wages are not growing as fast, and as a result, that's why you find that even the mainstream media, they have been talking about social mobility is lower now in Singapore, slower. You cannot move up for many. Fair. So I think that is something that in Singapore we have to tackle. Yeah. So your question about what's wrong in Singapore?
I think that's like the bigger systemic issue. But my question is so what do you think is the Singaporean, right, the individual, something that they're doing wrong towards pursuing a good quality of life?
I think there is overall in Singapore, there's something that seems to be going wrong. But I don't think actually it's because of the Singaporeans, because the Singaporeans are reacting to the environment. So our Singapore environment today, fortunately and unfortunately, is that we've moved into a very rich country too fast. And a lot of our growth has not come from manufacturing, making things, doing really hard work to make the money, but actually a lot of our money are made from speculating in assets. Okay, so as a result, there's a lot of those money floating around in Singapore, and that has basically push up that has actually made the disparity in Singapore bigger. But most of the Singaporeans, they cannot participate in it. So they have not done anything wrong.
So you don't think the average Singaporeans that feel alienated on some level has any individual responsibility to play? That means there's nothing that they're doing wrong. Everything is right. It's just the system is wrong. Of course, there's some self-responsibility. Yeah.
Involved,
so what are some general things?
The main bulk of the problem, I think, is actually society and economy. It's not the individual. The individual is reacting to it. Just like, give you a point, an engineer in Singapore, actually my generation of engineers, or 10 years after me, they didn't have a very good life in Singapore.
Yeah. That's why they all end up in teaching.
Yes.
Right. Really? Last time I don't understand. All the finance teaching, all the masters in physics. Why are you here? Right?
And you have our best students in my generation are the best students, and they are not continuing with what they are doing. So what happened to the technology level in Singapore? Go down. We don't have technology level at technology anymore, because those who have the technology are retiring, are not doing the work. Because so it is actually not their fault. It's because the whole economy is manage like that. Okay, manage like that, because in order to continue to keep our economy competitive, we need to lower the cost. When you lower the cost, it means that those who are doing the work, they suffer.
Which is why you're very supportive of the retail bill, right? The retail, the recent,
that one is
that's rental, a different one, which I also support. Yes, I think big landlords are making it very hard for small businesses to.
Yeah, so I really don't think there is any big fault on the part of the Singaporean, apart from the fact that they do make some comparison, but that comparison actually, to me, is also to a certain extent, it's actually positive energy. That make them be more competitive. Those who are really got very jealous about other people and all that, and becomes a negative energy, I don't think in Singapore that many. I think most Singaporeans are actually trying to move up, but they couldn't.
You never use social media lah.
Yeah, you go to the comment section, the comment section full.
I'm very scared.
A lot of negative energy.
When your videos go up, I will screenshot and send. You see the comment below, like want to fight like that. The energy is very intense. It's very intense. Really.
I guess at the end, it's also how we as an individual harness the energy. If someone wants to go down a negative route, that's also up to them.
So
fair.
Our problem today is really more how do we handle wealth? Wealth has come to our country over the last 2 generations too fast.
So you feel that one of the most practical executional steps that the government can do to improve the quality of life for everyone is a minimum wage and creating better jobs.
That's part of the whole package of financial security that we are trying to push.
What else are you trying to push?
Okay, inside the financial security,
Give 1 minute, not too long. I scared later a whole speech happened. Yes, tell me.
Yeah, you can stop me.
I said, okay.
In Parliament.
No.
Mr. Leong, are you making a clarification or making another speech?
Yes. You have 1 minute, Mr. Leong. Yes.
The first thing for the underprivileged who really need help is the minimum wage. Okay, so we need to, because minimum wage is the wage when you can sustain a person's minimum standard of living, right? So that is required in Singapore. Then after that is about retirement. That's why in Singapore, for the longest time, we've been talking about why we see 70-year-old, 80-year-old Singaporeans still working and they're in apparent poor health. Why are still working? These people cannot be like what the government say. They are there to basically spend their time away, to stay healthy. Cannot be. You look at the old man, he's limping, and he's collecting plates in the hawker center. This bullshit, right? It cannot be. So it is because retirement is not enough in Singapore. So how do you beef up retirement? There are many aspects to that, but one of the first thing that we have, one of the very fundamental thing that we have proposed in Parliament is to change the pricing of HDB flat. You don't make HDB flats so expensive. Singaporeans will have enough money under the current CPF system, have enough money to retire already. So it's because you launched the HDB, encourage people to speculate in HDB, and the HDB prices keep going up because you put in land prices into the HDB price. That's why the Singaporean CPF, even though it is growing with income, has been all sucked away into the HDB. So that is the fundamental policy that we have proposed, and the PM, by the way, on Sunday probably is going to cover a bit of this.
I look forward to some of these kind of discussions. Okay, so in closing, okay, how about everybody give one advice for the individual to small little thing that they can do to improve their quality of life. Actionable one, small thing.
For me, I'll go back to comparison.
Cannot, you must move on. You're holding comparison.
But it's true. It's the most actionable thing that you can do when
don't compare.
No, look, but be conscious of what the comparison is doing to you and your mental health. Use it as positive energy to aspire to be better, but not make it such that you feel very sorry and very bitter about your own life.
Okay. And you?
To me, I think it's more always have the attitude to try to improve your life yourself. You constantly have that thought, you will actually make it.
Wow, think and grow rich.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, literally, right?
Think and
What's
do
yours?
well.
Yeah, think and do well.
And then what's yours?
So I mean, I like what Bilahari said, right? Kausikan, right? So I think he went on one of the speeches and he was saying like, when I'm stuck in a negotiation, a diplomatic negotiation, right? Just do anything. Don't need to think one. Just do something, and then you'll shake up the whole equilibrium, and then the game kind of renegotiates itself. Right, so I think for a lot of Singaporeans that you are feeling like you're stuck, like your quality of life is not that good, just do something, anything. Don't sit there and wallow.
There's a more common way of saying that. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Or go to the gym or do something, right? And I think during my darkest period of time, it was just this one friend that every other week drove me to the gym that got me out of it. And I think that's
so that's why you need to do something.
Wow, call back. Very good. I give you 5 points.
You need to do something.
Yes.
You don't just 躺平.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. From that view, I agree. Okay. Great. So thank you.
Thank
you for
you.
today's episode.
Thank you.
Wow, interesting. Nice.